The rain fell steadily over the campus of Crestwood University, where the grand stone buildings carried with them a century of whispered secrets, ambition, and broken dreams. Students hurried across the courtyards with books clutched to their chests, chasing deadlines and futures. But within this world of lectures and papers existed another story, one that dared not be spoken aloud. Sophia Hart was in her second year at Crestwood, majoring in English literature. She was bright, curious, and ambitious, yet often overlooked by her peers. Her world was books, novels stacked on her dorm desk, margins filled with scribbled notes, poetry written in secret. She loved stories, not only because they offered escape, but because they revealed truths hidden beneath ordinary life. Yet despite her passion, she often felt invisible, as if her voice was too quiet for the world around her. Then came Professor Ethan Blake. He was young for a professor, early 30s, with a reputation for being brilliant but demanding. His lectures weren't simple readings. They were experiences. He dissected literature not as dry text, but as living, breathing art. Students admired him, feared him, or both. For Sophia, his class was a revelation. Every lecture felt as if he was speaking directly to her, challenging her to think deeper, to uncover meaning others ignored. Their connection began not with glances or gestures, but with words. Sophia's essays stood out to him, not because they were perfect, but because they carried raw passion. He wrote comments in the margins, long, thoughtful responses that went beyond correction. And slowly, Sophia found herself staying after class, asking questions, discussing books that weren't on the syllabus. Ethan, at first formal, grew intrigued by her insight. She wasn't like most students who chased grades. She chased meaning, but the more they spoke, the more dangerous it became. Both knew the rules. Professors and students were never to cross certain lines. Reputation, careers, futures, all could be destroyed by whispers. And yet, the pull between them grew stronger, not through physical touch, but through shared silence, lingering conversations, and the unspoken understanding that they saw the world in similar ways. The first real test came one winter afternoon when Sophia lingered after class, hesitant. "Do you ever feel," she asked softly, "that you don't quite belong in your own life?" Ethan looked at her, the usual sternness gone. "Every day," he admitted. In that moment, the air between them shifted. It wasn't professor and student. It was two souls, equally lost, finding recognition in each other. They both knew it was dangerous, so they tried to pull back. For weeks, Ethan kept his lectures strictly professional, and Sophia avoided his office hours. Yet fate has its own design. A campus event brought them together again, a literary festival where Ethan was a speaker and Sophia a volunteer. Surrounded by the buzz of academics and visiting authors, their paths crossed in the quiet of the backstage. He handed her a copy of a book he had quoted in his lecture. Their hands brushed, and though the touch was brief, it sent a wave of awareness through them both. From then on, the hidden relationship truly began. Not through declarations of love, but through coded exchanges. He left her notes hidden in books from the campus library. She responded with slips of paper tucked into the returned essays. Their words were careful, never reckless, but filled with meaning only they could decode. Each note was a spark in the otherwise routine rhythm of life. Yet the suspense of secrecy carried its own weight. Rumors swirled easily on campus, and even the smallest sign could spark suspicion. Once, a fellow student noticed Sophia's lingering smile after receiving a paper marked with Ethan's handwriting. Another time, A colleague of Ethan's mentioned how that heart girl seems unusually inspired in your class. Though these remarks were casual, they carried the potential to unravel everything. The conflict burned deeper inside Sophia. She admired Ethan, cared for him, even dreamed of a future where they could speak openly. But reality loomed. She was still a student, he a professor. Bound by ethics and reputation, one wrong step could end his career and stain hers forever. She often questioned whether it was selfish to continue, whether their bond was worth the risk. Ethan carried his own torment. He had chosen academia for its order, its discipline, yet here he was, risking it all for a connection he couldn't deny. The turning point came during spring break, when the campus grew quiet, emptied of students. Sophia remained behind, working in the library. One evening, as she walked home, she found Ethan waiting near the old clock tower. He didn't say anything at first, just looked at her with the weight of unspoken words. Finally, he said, "This has to stop, or it has to become something real." Sophia's heart raced. "And what would real mean?" she whispered. "It means," Ethan said, voice heavy, "that when the semester ends, when you're no longer my student, we can choose. But until then, we walk a careful line." It was both a promise and a torment. The weeks that followed were filled with suspense. They kept their distance in public, spoke in riddles others couldn't understand, and lived in the constant fear of discovery. Yet beneath that fear was hope, a fragile hope that time could free them. The final weeks of the semester were the hardest. Sophia's peers laughed, stressed, complained about exams, while she carried a secret heavier than any textbook. At the same time, Ethan grew more distant in lectures, as if building a wall to protect them both. Still, the notes continued, less frequent, but each one filled with longing. "Almost there," one read. "Hold on," said another. Then came graduation day. The sun shone over the courtyard, where families gathered, and students threw their caps into the air. Sophia walked across the stage, diploma in hand, her eyes searching the crowd. Ethan stood among the faculty, his expression unreadable. Yet when her gaze met his, she saw it, the silent acknowledgement that everything had changed. She was no longer his student. That evening, long after the celebrations ended, Sophia found a letter slipped beneath her door. It was in his handwriting. The words were simple, but they carried the weight of every secret they had shared. Now we can begin. And so their hidden relationship, once bound by rules and fear, stepped into the uncertain light of freedom. It was not the end of their story, but the beginning of one where love was no longer forbidden, only fragile, daring, and real.